Hello everyone, I'm Dimitris from BASE, the organization behind the Cooling as a Service initiative, which objective is to mainstream the model in the market. Today we have the pleasure to interview Dr. Toby Peters from the University of Birmingham on the potential cooling as a service brings in the cold chain industry. Toby, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. May I ask you first to briefly introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hello, so my name's Toby Peters. I'm Professor in Cold Economy at the University of Birmingham, where I'm researching system-level solutions to the challenge of access to cooling for all.
So here goes my first question. You have seen the potential in the cooling as a service model for several years now. What do you think is missing to make this a robust, market accessible model?
The cooling as a service model, I think at the moment is robust and market accessible. I think the challenge is that it now needs to be recognized for the mainstream opportunity that it offers in providing access to cooling for all. I think one of the challenges is that we need to make sure that we really look to roll out technology with cooling as a service, as an integrated solution. So when we look for demonstrating or deploying technology or supporting the deployment of technology, it's very much with CaaS alongside it to make it financially resilient and sustainable.
What potential do you see for CaaS to strengthen agricultural and medical cold chains?
We have to recognize the challenge that we're trying to address. The majority of farmers in low and middle income countries are small and marginal, many of them with less than 2 hectares, sometimes 0.6 hectares of land. They might be earning $60 a month, and we can't expect them to buy and pay for equipment costing tens of thousands of dollars. But they need the access to that equipment. They need the access to the service that equipment provides, the cooling, to increase the market connectivity, to protect the quality of the product, the nutritional value. And the benefit of CaaS is, it's fundamental to unlock and enable or provide access to cooling to these farmers.
How do you see CaaS as a key element to enable systemic thinking when designing cooling solutions?
We're looking at community cooling hubs, where the idea is you aggregate together the services required. And in so doing, you aggregate together the revenue streams to provide a resilient cooling solution for a community. So you can provide the cold chain for food, you can provide the cold chain for vaccines and health, you can provide other services, secondary cooling, all from one system. The only way you can do that is if you servitize the different revenues, the different requirements through a cooling as a service model. So for me, if we want to deliver the sustainable and economic benefits of looking at cooling as a system, you have to have cooling as a service as the economic model to underpin it.
Do you see synergies between some of the efforts currently being carried out across the globe to strengthen cold chains and cooling as a service?
At the moment, I'm not seeing the synergies that we need between cold chain and cooling as a service. I'm seeing too much deployment of single pieces of technology, cold storage, rather than cold chain. And we're not seeing it being underpinned with the servitization models, which make the cooling accessible to those farmers, those small and marginal farmers who really require the service.
Many thanks, Toby. And finally, are there any other comments you would like to make about cooling as a service?
So one of the programs that we're looking to develop, or one of the programs we are developing, is the Africa Centre for Sustainable Cooling and Cold Chain, which is to help accelerate to market community cooling hubs and community cooling services across Africa. And the idea here, or the work we're going to be doing, is bringing together all the different pieces of technology from farm to market for food, and also from airport to arm for vaccines and the wider cooling demands, and then underpinning them with a cooling as a service business model to make them accessible and also resilient. I think it's these two words that we have to be looking for in the economic model. It has to both make the technology accessible, or the service the technology provides accessible, but it also has to make it resilient, because without that resilience, you won't get the infrastructure investment required to deploy the technology.